Howdy everybody, Heath Robinson here with Topaz. Sorry about the slight delay. We had a little bit of a technical issue with microphones. Um, we got that resolved. So I'm excited to be presenting again. I'm more excited to have Rad Drew here. He's the real professional. He's going to be presenting Exploring Your Creativity with Topaz Studio.
Well, thanks for that introduction, Heath. It's great to be back doing this again. And I've just continued to grow with Topaz, and these guys have just created a whole lot of improvements to what was already a really good tool, set of tools from the summer until now. And the big centerpiece of that has been the changes related to the introduction of Topaz Studio. That's what we're looking at right now on my desktop. It's a photo editor. Many of you have already experienced using it. You can use it as a plugin with Photoshop or Lightroom, or you can use it as a standalone, as I'm doing here today. What I want to do today is just do a quick go around of the new interface, the Topaz Studio interface, and then I'm going to take us through several images that I've worked up already using Topaz software adjustments. And I'm going to take a little bit different approach this time. Often I build these images from scratch right before, before everyone's eyes as we're sitting here online. But what I've done this time is create these images, create all the layers and stacks and everything that I'm doing. And then what we're going to do is look at those in totality first, and then we'll kind of reverse engineer and turn off layers and go back to the beginning. And I'll show you how I added each of the adjustments to create the final image. So with that said, let me just go around what we're looking at here. So again, this is the Topaz Studio interface. Over here on the left, we have the effects panel, and this is where you'll have all of the different preset effects that many of which you might be familiar with, from clarity, detail, glow, impression, simplify, texture effects, and so on, a host of them here. We also have the ability to, let me click out of this a little bit. We can also see effects in the public arena. If I click on this public icon, we're seeing all of the effects that you or I or anyone who's using Topaz, if you've saved an effect and have it in the public domain, we can all see them and share them. So it's a really fun way of kind of expanding our repertoire of tools and sharing ideas with other people. You can see some really really neat different looks that you might not have created yourself, but are out there. So over here on the right, this blank area here is the adjustments panel. And that's what Heath was talking about, going to be giving away 2 sets of all of the adjustments available in Topaz today to one of you online, or 2 of you online. So when I click on the adjustments, these are all the various adjustments that come or that are available within Topaz. Now, the ones above this line, the Topaz Studio is a free download, and even if you don't purchase any plugins or adjustments, you still have all of these items that are free. So you can still do basic adjustments, tonal curves, vignettes, and so on. And then also you have these tools down here where you have crop, a healing, content-aware healing tool, lens correction, you can mask, and then there's some other things that you can do with rotation of your images. So even if you aren't prepared at this time to get on board with purchasing of apps and adjustments, you can still get quite a bit of value out of the basic Topaz Studio tool, just as a free download. So you also have over here on the left, as I said, are the effects panel. Down below here, these are all of the images that I've loaded into to Topaz. Now today I'm going to be working with JPEG images. The only reason I'm doing that is because it runs a little faster for me when I'm online. And but you can drag your raw files directly into the interface and it will load them right up, and you can work with your raw files, which is what I typically do when I'm working on images for myself. Let's see, up here on the right at the top, You'll notice right now I'm in a navigation mode. You also have several other tabs up here. I have not used the HSL or details tabs, but I do use the RGB histogram, and I'll be showing you how I use that to help me make certain adjustments and looking at my black and white points as I do that. Down below here, we have the ability to apply the changes to an image or duplicate an image in a flattened format. And then we also have some custom adjustments over here where we can save our own set of adjustments as an effect that we'll set up over here on the left. So I think those are the basic things. Oh, the other thing that I really enjoy with this is that I can take these little arrows right here. I can collapse that, and I can collapse that if I wish, and I've got now a really large workspace where I can do my thing with my adjustments or whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and bring those back up just for now, just so since we're wanting to see some of those things. So let's go ahead and start with the first image that I have here. This is I live in the Midwest in Indiana, and I got to get out recently and do some photography in my own backyard, pretty much. And this is one of the shots that I took, and I'm going to go over here and pull up the preset or the effect that I created. First, I'm going to go down here to where it says My Effects, and I'm going to type in barn, because I know that's in the title. And the one I want is this one right here. Let's see. Now let's use this one. So these are presets that I've done already. So as soon as I click on this, you'll notice over here in the adjustments panel, all of my adjustments that I use to create this particular effect here are all listed over here in the side panel. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to turn off each of these panels and we'll come back and recreate them. So to do that, you notice the little eyeball here on each of the layers. As I click that eyeball, I'm effectively turning off the adjustments in that particular adjustment layer. So I'm just kind of backing my way up here and turning these off. So I'm starting here with the basic adjustment layer. And this is essentially my workflow for most of the images that I process in Topaz. So what I'm going to do is reset this to 0 by clicking this little reset parameters icon here. And when I do that, it brings me back to my original photo, and all of these are at their starting points, at their 0 defaults. So what I typically do with most of my images, I want to kind of set a white and black point before I do anything else. So I've got my RGB histogram showing up here in the top right, and I come down here to my black level and white level, and if I just take the slider and move it to the left, and I'm watching up here in this area in the histogram, and I want to get to where my histogram is right up against the edge of the frame, but not climbing up it and crushing my blacks, or on the other side blowing out my whites. So I'm starting to get just a little bit right there. So that's about where I want to be. Once I get there, then I'm going to play with my exposure a little bit and decide if I want to drop it down a little bit or increase it a little bit. I think on this one, I'm probably going to take it up to about right there. My clarity, I'm going to bump up and see how that affects things. I like what's happening here with the barn as I bring the clarity up. Shadows, I might lift those just a tiny bit. And the highlights, I'm going to back them off a little because I'm starting to get a little bit of blowing out there in the silo. Let's see how that does. That's much better. So here's our before, and here's our after. Now I might come down also at this point, and I might just pop my saturation just a tiny bit, but not a whole lot. So that's it for that adjustment. I'm turning that off by clicking this little caret or little arrow here, and it collapses all of these changes in that adjustment. So I'll close that up. The next one that I did is a precision contrast. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and it unpacks it and turns it on at the same time. So now you're seeing the effects of this precision contrast adjustment that I've done. So with this one, again, I'm going to zero this out and show you how I get there. But you'll notice the adjustments that I've made include bumping up this micro and low contrast, medium contrast not much, and then the high contrast, moving it down just a little bit. And then I've played with the shadow, midtone, and highlights here. And also did some settings down below. So let's go ahead and collapse this reset this to 0. And where I start with this, I shut my saturation all the way down to 0, so I'm working only with the tones in the image. And again, I go up here with my histogram displayed, and I begin to play with those highlights and shadows, and I want to see if I can't kind of move. Again, I don't want to crush my blacks or blow up my whites. So something, it's not a whole lot different than what I already had, but right there. Now I can come up, maybe expand a little bit, and I can start working with my contrast and see how it's affecting. So I'll move that up just about maybe 30 to 40, 35 to 40, my lows. And you can, experiment with these. Like if I would take this all the way, this micro adjustment all the way to high up, you can see the effect that it's having on the image. And clearly that's too much, but by maxing them out, you can get a sense of where the slider's taking you and find that what I call kind of a sweet spot where everything's starting to come together. I'm going to drop my medium. So if I bring that up, I'm going to leave it right about there, and my high, I'm going to drop it down. So there's before and there's after. And then shadows, midtones, I'm pretty good with what I'm seeing. I'm pretty happy with that. So before and after. So I'm going to go ahead and close that up again by hitting this caret. And the next thing I've done is something called HS color tuning. It's companion to the precision contrast, and it allows us to focus on specific colors in the image and make adjustments to those specific colors by the overall color, hue, saturation, and lightness. And if you mouse over each of the squares here, like here's red. If I mouse over red, you can it's really hard to see, but you can see hash marks showing where the red is appearing in the image. So if I click on that, what I've done here is increase my red a little bit and the lightness. So we're just adjusting the red now. If I slide to the right, you can see how I've just made that even more saturated. It's too much, so I'm going to back it off. But you can also brighten it or lighten it by the slider over here. So there we've got it, we're starting to lighten it. So you can see how you can use this to really get close to either the reality you saw or the vision that you have for your image, right down to the specific color. I noticed that I've got a little bit of stubble and grass down here that's yellow. If I go into that orange hue, I can bring that up a little bit and kind of make that pop out. I've lightened it a little bit. So those are the things. I've also done a little bit with the aqua in the sky and the blue in the sky as well. There's even a little magenta here that adjusted just a little bit. So here's our before and after, really pops the color in the image. Now below, we can begin to work with the details here and increase those just a tiny bit. I'm not seeing we're not doing enough to create artifacts in that, so I'm happy with that. I'm not going to do any more. The next one then is precision detail. And for this one, let's see, I worked with the shadows and the highlights. So if we look at our shadows here, overall, I didn't make adjustments to. I went specifically into my shadows, and I just did a little bit of a small detail increase there and a small detail increase on my medium contrast. And then the larger details, if we bring this all the way up, you can see it's kind of taking things to a little bit, I don't know how to describe it, but you can see it. It's too much. So I'm going to bring that back down, And then on sharpening, I've brought it up to about 20%. And a lot of times I like to zoom in and just kind of see what's happening with my sharpening. And I'm happy with that. Down below, I can play with these, my midtones, shadows, and highlights. I've dropped my highlights just a little bit to keep this from blowing out. And sometimes those midtones affect the highlights as well. And if we need to, we can get down into the white point, drop that back just a little bit. So again, there's before and there's after, and I'm pretty pleased with that. So let's go ahead and close that up. So the next thing that I'm going to do here, and sometimes I do these very early in the process. In this case, I've waited until doing these other adjustments, but dehaze and reduce noise are two adjustments that you're going to want to use, especially if you've been shooting in maybe a low light situation where you've had to bump up your ISO, or maybe you're shooting in an area where you literally have haze, from dust or heat or light in the late afternoon or something. So these I've set up to just a very little bit because there's not a lot going on here, but I wanted to show them to you. One of the things that each of the adjustments has is a custom tab. And the custom tab, it's kind of like the effects over here, only just a preset for this particular adjustment. So if I click on custom, you can see it's got a dehaze setting, a heavy dehaze, or a light dehaze. And I like to choose one of these and kind of see how it's, as you mouse over them, you can see in real time how it's changing the image. But it's also a good starting point a lot of times for what you may want to tweak after you select it. So I'm going to select light dehaze, and I'm quite happy with that. I don't think I'm going to do any changes to it at all. I'm going to simply close that up and go down to reduce noise. And this again is really good if you've had to shoot with a low ISO and you're getting a little bit of that gritty noise, particularly in a sky or something. So if we go down to reduce noise, once again, I'm going to go to the custom tab here, and I'm going to look at what options I have already pre-done. There's color noise, there's a heavy noise, a light noise, and a medium noise. And for this image, if I zoom in, I'm not seeing a lot of noise here. I'm going to go ahead and just choose light noise. Now I can always make additional adjustments here if I choose, but I'm very happy with right out of the box on that one. I'm not often, but I am in that case. So now we've got the image sharpened and the clarity good and all of those things. Now we're ready to add our texture and impression layer to turn this into somewhat of a painting. So I'm going to go down and open up our texture layer, and here's where we get into some real powerful stuff here. So the textures, if I scroll down, you notice that I've chosen a multiply blend mode for each of the textures you select. If you click on this little icon right here, you can choose from all of the different blend modes that you might be familiar with from other applications that do processing. I'm going to choose multiply for this particular one. I believe it defaults to normal usually. Also, you have the option over here to adjust your opacity. Often the opacity starts out at like 0.5 here in the center. I'm bringing it up to a full 100%. But if I were to leave that on normal and change it to 100%, I can't even see my image. I have to back this off in order to see the image. So I switched to multiply. And each image is going to be a little different depending on the look that you're going for. But this is where I'm headed with this. So let's go down into our textures down here, and let me see if I can find. I'm scrolling down to look for the one that's been selected. Where are you? And come on, where are you? There it is. Ah. Whoop, sorry.
The textures adjustment does come with, I believe it's over 300 textures. If you want,
Yes,
you can use the group category to select textures, and then it will only show
right.
those.
That's a good point. And so let me show you something though when you do that. Now you notice I've set this to multiply. If I go in here to the groups and I select textures, it bumps me back to normal. So you want to go do the first thing is go back up there and change it to textures. And let's see, I don't know if I know where there it is. It's this one right here. So that's our texture that we've selected. It's at multiply, it's at 100% opacity. And now when I come down beneath the texture that we've selected, you've got a bunch of options here. The two that I use most frequently are the flip horizontal and flip vertical. What these allow you to do is flip your texture horizontally and vertically so that let me just do one. Look at the texture up here in this area. And when I flip it, it's just taking the texture and turning it over so that the texture elements are on the other side of the image. Same is true with flip vertical. If I flip here, it's taking the elements, it's turning it upside down. So basically you're getting 4 textures in one, and you can play around and find the orientation of that texture that fits with the image that you're working with. So I kind of like that one. I like the rough texture over here and what's coming in here. Now below that, you'll notice that you have lock aspect ratio. The default is yes, and you'll most times want to leave it there. Otherwise, you can get your image size or aspect ratio and your texture aspect ratio out of kilter, and that's usually not the result we want. The other thing is you'll notice you can choose to have the texture be in the foreground or the background. The default is foreground, and that's where most of the time I think you'll use that foreground positioning. But sometimes, let's say you're painting in a sky, a cloud texture, having that on background is a good thing because then you can mask out the foreground of the image, allowing the sky to remain in the background. But for today, we're going to leave this on foreground. Below then, once you get all of that set up, you have the ability to adjust the brightness, contrast, detail, and saturation of the texture. Not the image, but the texture. So we can begin to start looking for that look we want by taking the slider. I could brighten this up a little bit, quite a bit. A little bit goes a long way on these sliders sometimes. We also have the ability to adjust the contrast. So I can kind of sort of drop the contrast and smooth things out, or I can increase the contrast a little bit and pop out some of that texture. So it really depends on the look you're going for. You have the power within this tool to find that look. You can also drop the detail of the texture down so it's less prominent, or you can increase the detail and have it really, really stand out. Now, obviously, for me, that's way too much. I'm going to bring this detail way down to where it's a little more subtle and understated. That's all I'm going to do with the texture on this one. I'm going to go ahead and close that up. And the next thing that I work with on this image is impression, which is where we get a lot of the painterly effects. So I'm going to open up impression here. And what I've done with this is I've chosen a stroke. So you have this palette of different strokes that you can choose. I chose this one, but you could choose a variety of different. I'm just kind of clicking on some different ones. And you'll notice like this one has a very small stroke, so it's not filling the canvas completely. I'll show you in a minute how you can kind of correct for that. So I'm going to go ahead and use that stroke. You can choose the number of strokes. If you have a low number of strokes, it looks a little different than if you have a high number of strokes. So you got a lot of different ways to control what's going on. You can also lower or increase your brush size. Now you notice as we drop the brush size down, we start getting these little specks. What's happening is the paint isn't covering the canvas. So this is actually the canvas showing through. So I want to show you there's a way to, instead of just increasing your brush size, which is what I think many of us have been doing, I just learned a new feature of Topaz that lets you fill in those areas, but still have the brush size that you want. If you slide down to, let's see, is it in texture? Hold on a second here. Yeah, if you go down to, you've got color, lighting, and texture. Down below texture, you have 2 background types, solid or original. If you choose solid, it's going to have this effect where the paint isn't covering the texture, and you're going to see the background color coming through. Now you have a background color picker here. You could change that if you wanted to. But if you simply change it to original, I'll go ahead and click on original here, it's going to fill with the original image. So now if we go back up to our brush, we can still have a very small brush size, which may be the look we're going for, and it's going to fill with the original image. So we're not going to get those little white spots. So it's kind of a neat thing. Wanted to share that with you. I was excited to learn about that. The other things that you have here, I encourage you to explore these and play with them. You can adjust the stroke, the length of the stroke. You can have the paint spill outside of the edges. You can smudge things. There's a variety of things that you can do with that. You can also back off the painting progress if you want to stop things at a different stage than the complete painted stage. So there may be some stage between the beginning and the end that you prefer, and this painting progress is going to look different, again, depending on whether you have the solid or original selected down here. So just be aware of that. Let's see, color. Again, this is very similar to the other color that we were looking at. You can identify areas that you want to brighten, like I just selected the red, I can brighten that, or saturate that, I can brighten it, and so on. So you've got, again, that control of those parts of the image. I'm not going to do much with that, but that's it. I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and collapse that set of changes.
Rad, I had one thing to note. Just like in the texture
Yeah,
adjustment, where you see those color and saturation changes, in the impression adjustment, those HSL adjustments you can make only affect the areas where the paint strokes are. So people are going to ask, why'd you use HSL color tuning if you had HSL in impression? But just like you said, with those smaller strokes, you're actually not covering the entire image with your paint. So those adjustments that you're making inside the impression adjustment only deal with the painterly effect that impression is creating. So if you were to mask, then the HSL wouldn't apply to anything outside of that masked impression adjustment, if that makes sense.
yeah, that's great. Thank you for calling that out. That's a good point. So there we go. There's our image. I'm happy with that, and I'm done. So once I'm ready to save that image, I would simply go up to File, Save, and I usually save as and save it out to wherever. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Come on. Okay. There we go. So the other thing that we can do with this, if we want, now that we've created this look, we can save this as an effect that we can use for other images. To do that, I'm going to go over here to this little icon right here, the Save Effects icon in the lower right, and I'm going to tap on that, and it brings up the Save Effect dialog box. And here you can type in the name of the effect, you can give it a description, you can add some tags to it to help you identify it, and then you notice right here it says public, yes or no. I have most of these set to no because I don't want to share them outside to the rest of the world. But if you have textures you want to share, you simply select yes, and they will then be visible to any other Topaz users. So again, that's kind of a fun aspect of that. So once you've created an image and you want to apply, you want to apply it to another image, let's say go to this one right here. Again, I'm going to go to my effects and barn, and I am going to select that preset, and there we're done. I mean, basically that preset has applied to this image, and I don't know that I'd want to make any changes. Now, many times I may want to go in and make some tweaks, and you can do that by opening up any of the adjustments and making those changes. to affect a new image. But it's a great shortcut when you have, especially like I was out shooting on this day, the sky was the same everywhere, lots of things, and I was able to apply this to many different things that I did, and it looked good. Now, the other thing that you can do, once you've got all your adjustments done, you can go into each adjustment. You notice there's an opacity slider on each of the adjustments here. So let's say we went into the texture adjustment and we drop the opacity on that. Let's see how it changes. So we can adjust this at that level even now, so we can soften that effect a little bit. The other thing we can do is come down to, well, impression, same thing. We can increase the effect of that paint. So it's turning it more and more, and a little bit more of a painting. But down below, you have this kind of global effect opacity. So this opacity is going to affect the entire set of adjustments, the whole effect, if you will. So if I drop the opacity here, I can make changes as well. So they're just some neat little things that allow you kind of, after you've done a lot of the major work, you can still go in and do little tweaks on each individual image to maybe change them in desirable ways. So incredibly powerful tool. So let me go ahead and let's pick another image here. Let's see. I want to show you this one that I did. Let's see. I'm going to zero that out. This, believe it or not, is an iPhone image, which basically anymore is just a photograph, just like anything else. The iPhone images are getting so good. But I shot this with a 7 Plus iPhone and dumped it into Topaz Studio, and I created this effect. Let's see. Let me go to my effects and search winter. So I created this look for this image, kind of a brooding winter dark look. So if we back this out, I'm going to close each of these up. And again, what I did was started with my basic adjustment. I set my black and white level by watching my histogram up here. And then I began to set my exposure, my clarity, and adjust for shadows and highlights. And that's where I got, there's before and there's after. So it just brought a little detail out in the trees. It brought a little detail out in the clouds. And it's preparing us to go on to do the next adjustment, which in this case was another precision contrast adjustment. So again, with each of the adjustments you have, you can choose different blend modes. And for this one, I chose the multiply blend mode. Again, sometimes I like to come into the custom settings and see what it's doing with what the custom settings do with this image. So as I mouse over each one, you can see in real time what's happening. And I guess what I did was went in on my own here and I set my macro low and medium, brought them up a little bit, and made these other adjustments here. So again, I don't mind so much the grittiness of this because the layers and textures that I'm putting in are going to kind of make those less of an issue for me. So they're going to be blended in with the texture. So I'm really good with what I've got there. So I'm going to go ahead on that adjustment and close that up. And now I'm going to get into our textures here for this one. I'll open this up just so we can see what we have. And once again, I'm going to scroll down here. Wish there was a quicker way to do this. Where are you? Ah, there it is. I just saw it there. So it's this one right here. And again, we have the same things that we had before. We can flip it around to get the textures where we want them. Let me flip this upside down and see what happens. Flip it over, see what happens. Yeah, I kind of like that. And then again, we can play with our brightness and detail and make these adjustments. Again, looking for that, making your artistic statement with what you want to do with this image. That's all I'm going to do on that layer. So close that up, and then I'm going to add a second texture layer. And this time, I've chosen the screen blend mode, and I'm going to use one of the scratch, one of the scratch textures. So it's this one right here. And once again, we have the same option to flip it and do all that. So if we wanted, we could flip this and see how these striations are over here. I can flip it and move them over to this side if that feels better to you. I'll leave them there for now. And then again, we can play with the brightness of that. We can adjust our contrast to that, and so on. If we want, we can even get into the saturation and the color strength. If we slide the color strength up a little bit, we get a color slider bar. We can move this along the bar and get different tones. So we could bring it up here and add a little bit of, almost get it to a red tone. So again, the power of this thing, it's amazing, what you can do to satisfy your creative vision. So let's go ahead and I'm going to bring that back because I kind of like that where I had it. And then the final thing I'm going to do, I'll go ahead and close this up, or collapse it rather. The final thing I'm going to do is add a vignette. So I really like the power of a vignette to bring the viewer's eye into the subject of the image. And Topaz does a great job of making vignettes work for us. So what I like to do with this is take my strength of my vignette up to a maximum, take my size to about what I want it to be, roughly, come on. I take my transition and drop it down so it's a really hard edge and I can see where I am with it. I can adjust the roundness of that a little bit until I get it where I want it. And then I begin to back it down to the kind of transition I'm looking for and the right strength and size. Now, if it turns out that I don't have this in the right position, the vignette, I can come over here and click on this navigation icon and just kind of grab that highlight and put it where I want it. And, then continue to maybe lower the strength on that a little bit and increase the transition a little bit. So now we've got this, again, very brooding, moody looking image. And that's it. And if I wanted to, I could go down here. I'm looking at that and thinking, man, it's too dark. But I can go down here to the global opacity and drop that down and just brighten it just a little bit. I could also adjust any of these texture sliders or precision contrast sliders if I want to and make some little tweaks, but that's it. I'm happy with that. And so let's say I really like that image and I want to post it to Facebook or something and I want to add my signature to it. I have a signature file here that's a PNG file. I'm going to drag it over and just simply drag it and drop it into the adjustments panel. And it's going to pop this transparency file right into my image. I size it and position it. Let's make it a little smaller. Position it where I want it. And then I can also, let's say I don't want it to be so prominent, I can take the opacity slider here, drop it down, and kind of fade it out a little bit so it's not in your face. And that's it. We're ready to save our image and post it to whatever social media of your choice. I'll have some information about this. This is a photo logo product that they produce these for you to your specifications for about, I think it's about $40 now. They're just fun. I like having them. It kind of gives your images a professional look to have that signature on there. And Heath will share some information with you if you're interested in picking up one of those for yourself. So let's move on to another one. Let me see here. Let's go to, this is another fun image here. This is also in Indiana. I just love this barn with this implement in it. And one of the first things that I see that is an issue with this is the horizon is crooked. And so the first thing I'm going to do is go into my cropping tool here, and I am going to, there's an angle slider, and I can grab that and I can level my horizon. Come on, my mouse is being contrary. Okay, so that's about, looks pretty good. And we'll say done, and it's going to, go ahead and crop that, or I mean, level that for me in the way that it needs to be. So what I'm going to do next, well, let's go to my effects here, and this is another one that I created, and so this is a look. Again, I wanted to kind of give this just a late afternoon, winter. It was about 7 degrees when I took this photograph. It was really cold, so I wanted to kind of give it that kind of cool, cold, wintry look. So again, same process we used before. I went in and did my basic adjustment, set my black and white levels, and then began to work with my exposure and clarity. I did a precision contrast adjustment to pop out the details and the contrast in the front of the barn, as well as a precision detail. And then with textures, I chose a texture that gave it that kind of wintry look and allowed me to process it in this way. So we don't need to find that, but we did the same thing with all of those things, made the adjustments, the saturation, dropped the detail down to make it softer, because if I bring this detail up, it really brings it in your face in a way that's too much for me. So I like subtlety more. So I back it off and kind of it gets creamy and softer, and that's more preferable to me. You can also brighten it a tiny bit if you choose. So again, a lot of options there. The other thing, I'm going to close this out. The other thing you can do with this is apply. Now you notice when I changed it back to nothing here, it also, I lost my horizon leveling. So I'm going to go back and just reset that real quick. Okay. And then some of the other effects that I've created here in my effects, there's another one. Some of these others that I used for some of the different barns really, I think work really well for this. Here's that one that we were using a minute ago. It works pretty well. What I might want to do is maybe drop it down, brighten it up a little bit, and make some changes like that. And we could go in and tweak that to get it to where we want it. But I'm just applying existing filters. Here's another one. That one doesn't quite work as well without some adjustments, but you get the idea. Here's one that I kind of like, this reflecting barn that I did. I like this soft texture in the sky. So
Yeah, that one's pretty. I really like that
just
one.
yeah, just some different ways to play with that. So one last thing here, and then we can, I don't know, we're getting close. This is another image. When I was shooting the other day, I had this notorious bald sky, not a cloud anywhere. And a lot of photographers kind of complain about that. But for me, I get excited because I see it as a canvas for textures. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to go to my effects, and I'm going to choose one of these. Let's see, let me go to the barn. I kind of like, well, I like this one. So what it allows me to do is I get this great sky now and my barn, but what I don't like about this is that my texture is covering the barn in a way that kind of makes the barn, I want it to pop a little bit more. So what you can do is use the Topaz Studio feature, the mask feature, which is down here in this toolbar. Select that. And what we're going to do is use the masking tool. I'm going to select the brush, and I want the opacity to be kind of maybe about 50% or so. And now when I come in here and wipe away that texture, I'm lightening that barn a little bit. And it's just a way of keep getting the texture off the barn, if you will. And you'll notice one of the features that Topaz has, it's over here, you'll see it's called Edge Aware, and it's currently on. And Edge Aware is that the green line and the red line you see, as long as I keep my brush, which is the red circle, inside the area that I'm masking, and the edge of what I'm masking between the red circle and the green, it's going to do a pretty nice job of getting that mask where I want it. So it's just a nice way to, you know, to get your masking pretty accurate. Oops, and I just dropped down into the snow a little bit. We'll see what happens. So, so that's not too bad. So if I wanted to, since I dropped down into the snow, what I would do is drop that transparency back, and I'd come in here and paint that back in. And whoops, wrong way. I always do that backwards. There we go. And so now we're back to where we were. So now there's our image. We've got this great texture behind it, but our barn is still fresh and pops out. So pretty cool. One last one. Do I have time for one more, Heath?
Oh yeah, keep going, man. People are loving this. Let's
Okay, so this is, believe it or not, these bison are in Indiana, not far from where I live in Indianapolis. There's a big herd of them out there, and it was freezing cold, like 7 degrees, and they were all huddled together. And I didn't get a real crisp, clear shot. It's not real tack sharp, as you can see, and I didn't get any of their eyes. But I thought, I really liked the composition, and I thought, well, you know, this might make a good painting. So I went into my, I created this, let me see here. What did I call this? Buffalo, of course. So here it is. So here's the painting that I created from this image. Now, I don't know, it's abstract, but I thought it was pretty cool. I really liked it. And again, the way I got there, I started with a basic adjustment. Let me just back these off real quick. Started with a basic adjustment where I set my black and white point. Now on this one, I went into my custom settings, and I chose one in here that was pretty close to what I liked, and I think it might have been saturation boost, because it brought up some of the gold tones in the buffalo's hide or bison's hide. So then I tweaked that a little bit to arrive at what I have here. So there was before and after. Not a big change, but just a little bit. So then I collapsed that. Then I went in and did a precision contrast adjustment. And this one, here's before and after. And again, just a little bit on the micro adjustments so that their hide comes out. We're starting to get a little bit more clarity in some of the details in their faces and stuff like that. But it's still got some darker areas and some not real sharp areas. So the next thing that I chose to do was add an impression layer. And here's where we went into choosing a brush and the high number of strokes. I can adjust that opacity. So here now we're getting this really cool looking impressionistic painting of these bison, and I just think it's great. I really liked it. Now, one of the things I did was went into color here, and I think I did that here. Hold on a second. Maybe I did. Well, let's just try it here. So we can go down here to these gold tones, and I want to bring out that gold in their hide. So I'm going to raise this up a little bit. Look at that. I've just brought that up just a little bit. That's probably too much. Again, it's easy to overdo it here with saturation and so on, but it's just a really, you just have to remember to be subtle with it. And maybe drop that down a little bit. contrast, and that's it. I'm going to stop there. So so there's our before, and there's our after. The other thing you can do with this, if you want, if you slide down below an impression, you have an option where it says texture. And I'll go ahead and open up texture. And these are basically canvases that you can choose. These are all texture canvases. So we've got a painting here, right? So what if we were to choose a canvas to put this on? And I've selected this canvas, and then our texture strength is here. So I can increase that. So now we've got a texture canvas. I can make it small, make the size of the texture smaller. And so now we have our, here you can kind of see it over here better. We have our image on a canvas texture. The last thing I might do with this, I don't like this edge over here showing, so I would go in and I would crop it to where I'm eliminating that little bright spot on the edge of the image. So something like that.
Yeah, I love this one. It's really phenomenal. And that's a great thing too, is
There it
this
is.
wasn't an image that you thought like it was kind of a bad image, right? You like the composition, but it wasn't sharp enough that you would want to just do a normal photo manipulation on it. So but with this one,
Right.
you had the ability to make a really cool thing. I really like
Yeah,
that.
it was kind of a throwaway shot in some respects, but it had qualities that I liked, and it turned out. I think I enjoy this shot. I really I have fun with it, and I'm real happy with it. So, um, and then again, once you get all this done, um, oops, trying to collapse that. Um, I can take my signature and just drag it over here and size it, position it, and so on. And we're ready to go. Save it out and post it.
Guys, if you want to follow Rad, be sure to check out his website, Rad Drew Photography. He puts out great things in his email. He's got some fantastic workshops he does pretty much all year. You're doing something. At least I know you're doing a couple of things every quarter. Do you have anything coming up you'd like to share, Rad?
I have two trips to Cuba in March, and then Fonthill Castle is a great tour in Pennsylvania where we hit several different venues out there. That's just a really fun. Longwood Gardens, Eastern State Penitentiary,
Yeah,
Fonthill Castle.
and that castle's pretty exclusive, right? They don't let many people into that, from what I remember.
Yeah, it's you can tour it, but you can't photograph in it unless you make special arrangements. And I'm lucky enough to have some connections. So yeah, it's a really fun place to shoot.
Yeah, if you guys are interested in that, be sure to check out Rad's website. You can also follow him on Facebook, facebook.com/Rad Drew Photography. If you got questions, you can contact Topaz directly at webinars@Topaz Labs, and you can sign up for upcoming webinars. Next week, we've got Hazel Meredith, who's also presenting on the brand new Texture Effects in Studio. Next week, you can sign up for that at topazlabs.com/webinars. Rad, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure having you. This is a fantastic webinar. We've got a ton of great feedback from people. And again, we were completely maxed out, so I'm super excited to have you back. Let's go ahead and get you on the schedule sometime soon. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Heath. I'll be talking to you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a good morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you are in the world.